Welcome to my show. It's me, Dhriti Yatri, bringing you the top news from all around the globe that matters the most. So let's start with it. Well, Taliban issues shocking warning over the US-Iran conflict. The Taliban signals that it could support Iran if war erupts with the US here. Well, the statement raises fear of new regional alliances that are forming. Zabihullah Mujahid sends strong battlefield-style warning here. Taliban spokesperson says that Afghanistan could unleash all capabilities. Well, the wording suggests potential military involvement, not just diplomacy anymore. Afghanistan attempts to reposition its regional player. Afghanistan is now commenting on global conflicts beyond its borders. This marks a major shift from its past inward focus strategy. United States aircraft carriers become direct targets in warning. Massive warships like USS Gerald R. Ford, they were mentioned in the threat signals. Well, such references increase seriousness of geopolitical tension. Trump's Iran pressure continues to escalate. Donald Trump maintains sanctions and military deployment pressure. Well, this strategy keeps diplomatic negotiations highly fragile. IRGC-linked video sparks global alarm. Channels that are linked to Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps releases a threatening warning simulation video. Well, the visuals hinted at massive retaliatory strikes. Jordan Air Base highlighted in propaganda footage. Well, the video reportedly showed the Muwafaq Salti Air Base, which is a possible target. Its use by allied forces make it strategically extremely sensitive. Experts suspect AI-generated psychological warfare. Well, security analysts say that the video appears digitally created rather than real strike planning. Here, one thing we know is that modern conflicts increasingly involve digital intimidation tactics. Russia declared open support for Iran. Russia steps firmly into the crisis with diplomatic backing for Tehran here. Now, this dramatically reshapes global power alignments. Putin sends strategic message to Iranian leadership. Russian President Vladimir Putin reaffirmed strong ties with Iran here. He called the partnership friendly and strategically vital. Iranian President strengthens Moscow-Tehran axis here. Well, Masoud Pezeshkian received assurances of Russian cooperation here. The alliance adds geopolitical pressure on the United States. Iran signals willingness to compromise on nuclear talks here. That's right, Deputy Foreign Minister Majid Takht, he confirmed openness to negotiations. However, Tehran insists that missile program remains non-negotiable. BBC reveals Iran's conditional offer to Washington. Reporters cited by BBC show Iran demanding sanctions relief first. Tehran says that nuclear restrictions could follow afterwards. Genoa sets to host critical nuclear negotiations here. Fresh diplomatic talks are expected in Genoa. Well, the meeting could decide whether tensions cool or escalate. China issues stern warning over Taiwan. China warned foreign powers against interference in Taiwan. Beijing considers Taiwan as inseparable part of its territory. Wang Yi rebukes Japan at Global Security Forum. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi criticized Japan's defense stance. Well, his remarks signaled rising Indo-Pacific tensions. Japan warns Taiwan conflict could threaten its survival. Their president, Sane Takaichi, hinted at possible military response if Taiwan is attacked. Well, the statement alarmed regional security analysts. Munich conference turned into diplomatic battleground. While the clash unfolded during the Munich Security Conference, global leaders witnessed one of the sharpest Asia-Pacific warning. Netanyahu demands complete nuclear dismantling of Iran. That's right. Benjamin Netanyahu insists partial disagreements or agreements with Iran are dangerous. He argues that Iran must eliminate all nuclear infrastructure at once. Jewish Leadership Forum reveals the US-Iran strategic talks. Well, the statement was delivered at Conference of Presidents of major American Jewish organizations. Well, the remarks highlight deep security cooperation. Gaza tunnel war continues beneath the surface. Israeli operations continue across the Gaza Strip. Israel says that militant tunnel remains a major battlefield threat. Hamas underground network remains central target here. Israeli forces are working to dismantle infrastructure linked to Hamas. While the underground network is considered a strategic military asset. United States expands global oil sanction enforcement here. Washington tracked tankers suspected of sanction violation across the oceans. Well, the operation signals a new era of maritime enforcement strategy. Pentagon describes boarding missions as legal maritime inspections. That's right, Pentagon called the tanker boarding a lawful operation. However, critics question international legal boundaries. Venezuelan oil network under increasing surveillance here. Venezuela faces growing scrutiny over shadow shipping fleet. Sanction enforcement is expanding beyond the regional border. United States military shifts strategy inside Syria. Syria is witnessing troops repositioning rather than full withdrawal, while Washington aims to rely more on aerial operations. United States Central Command intensifies the airstrike campaign. Well, the US Central Command reports dozens of recent strikes. Operations continue targeting the extremist militant networks. Strategic Al-Tanz base handed over in coordinated exit. While the US forces stepped back from Al-Tanz garrison, the withdrawal may reshape regional control dynamics. Anti-terror campaign against the Daesh continues. Military operations remain focused on destroying the remnants of Daesh. Washington insists that counter-terror priorities remain unchanged here. Global security landscape enters highly volatile phase. Multiple conflicts now intersect across Middle East and Indo-Pacific threats. Analysts warn that small trigger could ignite large-scale geopolitical crisis. And with that, that's a wrap-up of our 30 news bulletins from around the globe. From Israel to Gaza, from the US to Japan, the world is changing and so is geopolitics.
Hey guys, Dapu7, it looks like we've got reports of another big outage here. The outage kind of widespread. You can see here on the images that it's showing X and now Claude and OpenAI. This was not reported initially. The initial report said that X, AWS, and Cloudflare were seeing issues, and we've been seeing a lot of this as of late. If you go over to the map, you can see a bunch of the areas here that are reporting in issues with this. So, what's going on? We don't know, but it keeps kind of happening. X has been affected a lot. But again, initially this morning, they said that this had something to do with just X, Cloudflare, and AWS. It seems that the OpenAI and Claude, the AI software, is affected now by this because there's reports coming in the feed that it's glitching or it's down. I don't know if it too runs off these same servers, but this kind of shows you that when it comes to the AI stuff, they keep mandating that they have to have their own power plant on site. They have to have turrets to shoot down drones and all this other stuff. Why? Because, well, for the AI, they can't have or they don't want any disruption like this. And to me, all that just goes to show that if anything was to ever happen to one of these data centers, it would take down the AI. But I'll keep a watch here on these feeds. I'll leave a link. Enjoy. We got some big news here connected to the Epstein stuff, and it looks like the government may be dumping their final load here, or they're acting like it at least. And some are saying this is bombshell, the names coming out listed. Others are saying that this is a sleight of hand trick, because what they've done is they released these files, and apparently there are some redactions. There's caveats to those redactions that we'll talk about in a second. But what they've done is put all these names out there and say that these names in a large list were connected to the Epstein files, but it doesn't mean that those people are incriminated. They could have been mentioned because of a news article. Nonetheless, a whole list has been dumped with some crazy names on it that are going to raise some eyebrows. The problem with this is that the names don't connect to a crime, which people are saying that's criminal. Nancy Mace is coming out and saying, oh, no, you don't. The government's not going to get away with this. They're saying they dumped everything, but they didn't. They're still holding files back, acting like this is the last bit, and they're citing different reasons for doing so. Now, the materials released were tied to 9 categories, and they have definitions behind all those categories, including Epstein. Like Epstein, they say all investigations, prosecutions, and custodial matters have been released. The Ghislaine Maxwell is like blank behind it. Then it goes on the flight logs, travel records. It says all aircraft manifest, itineraries, custom records, vessels, vehicles. Then individuals named in connection with Epstein and his criminal activity, civil settlements, entities including corporations, nonprofits, governments, any immunity deals, the internal DOJ communications regarding decisions to charge or decline prosecution, communications regarding the destruction, deletion, or concealment of evidence, and then the documentation of Epstein's detention and death. Those were the categories tied into this. The list of names, again, raises eyebrows. They say that the department cautioned that the names appear across a wide variety of contexts, including emails, press mentions, third-party reporting, and peripheral document. So it's not tied into an email. If they are criminally tied into an email that we read, it shows that someone's been abused or a body's been buried, they're going to redact their name at the top still, is what everyone's taking from this. And it's ridiculous. Some are going to say, oh, it's bombshell. We've got a list, an official list, and people's names are on it. But it's sleight of hand. Yeah, they're giving you a list, but they just said right here, it could be because of several different reasons. It doesn't mean it's criminal, is what they're saying. So when it comes to the actual email that shows the crime, names are still redacted. Okay? And that's what people are going off about. And you can see here the names that make the list. They don't hold back. Miriam Adelson, Julian Assange. And see, people are going to see some names on here. They're going to be, there's no way. Those people had to be mentioned. They couldn't have been there. And then others are going to be dead giveaways that they were a part of the club and that they were there. I mean, you got Beyonce, Jeff Bezos. We talked about the whole Jay-Z thing here recently being tied into this whole thing. Dan Bongino, Bono. If you just want to see some of the names listed here, Jeb Bush, George Bush Jr., George Bush Sr., or George W. Bush, should I say, Big Bush. Tucker Carlson, his name pops up in this. Dick Cheney, Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, Kurt Cobain. Interesting with everything that just came out about his death. Bill Cosby. Interesting that they done had him in jail, then released, and all this other stuff, and kind of pulled his card like Harvey Weinstein, which we know was connected into these exact same circles. Okay? You can see as I'm scrolling here, Bill Gates, Melinda mentioned in it, Rudy Giuliani, some of the bigger names that like stand out, Reid Hoffman right there, from recent headlines. You can see Mick Jagger, there's Jay-Z, Alex Jones mentioned in there. And again, people are going to take this whatever way they want. If they see a name they like, they're going to be like, oh, no way, and they're going to say whatever. Really, this list is kind of like, again, it's sleight of hand. Jared Kushner mentioned there. The way that they do this, Monica Lewinsky, Howard Lutnick, you've got, it just goes on and on and on here. All the way down to the Obamas. And yeah, Donald Trump, Ivanka Trump, Melania Trump, J.D. Vance, all the names. Les Wexner, which they just unmasked in a courtroom basically here recently, or Massey did in a hearing. He was like, look, you guys redacted his face and his name. He was a criminal, and he wasn't, the paperwork wasn't about money laundering or anything like that. It was about this trafficking, and it was all proof that they were covering up and redacting these people. So I'm telling you, it's bombshell in different ways. And the fact that they're trying to say and play off that this is it, this is the rest of all the files. Here's a whole list of names, which is interesting, but it's different than what you're going to find in these files and emails. Although they say if any members of Congress want to go in, they can view the unredacted files. So they're still playing the public, and that's what Nancy Mace is going off about, many others. So, is it bombshell? Is it not? Well, you have admissions here that satanic things were going down on the island. And this is coming from Congressman Tim Burchett in different interviews. He's coming out and saying it will shock you, it will haunt you when you hear the real details. So these congressmen are allowed to go in, read and see the stuff, and they come out and then talk about it and say all this stuff, but they won't show the public. Like, there's where the issues lie big time with this. But this is some of the more recent stuff here to come out of this. Join me.
One of President Trump's core missions when he assumed the presidency was to unleash American energy dominance. He recognized that more energy made America stronger economically, job opportunities in our country, stronger militarily, better able to project power abroad. He led this effort with 4 large executive orders to move all the things out of the way that had strangled American energy ingenuity. We've had years of energy subtraction policies that directed our industries overseas and raised energy prices for Americans who are rightfully frustrated by that. One of President Trump's boldest proclamations was that this is America. We can build things, we can innovate, we can do things in this country. And in fact, he set out a very bold goal. This is just 12 months ago. He said by the 250th anniversary of our Declaration of Independence, meaning July 4 of this year, we're going to have multiple nuclear reactors critical. People thought that was crazy. 15 months away. We've built 2 reactors in 40 or 50 years, yet we're going to have 3 reactors critical by July 4. Well, I think you can see standing behind me, President Trump was serious, and the United States entrepreneurs, the United States military are standing up to make it happen. The Department of Energy that I run has done all sorts of efforts in enrichment, fuel fabrication, and changing regulations and rules to unleash American ingenuity. Today is history. A multi-megawatt next-generation nuclear power plant is loaded in the C-17 behind us. We're going to fly it to Utah today, and it will be critical, running all of its nuclear systems by July 4 of this year. God bless President Trump's leadership. God bless the United States military and Department of Energy, and God bless the United States of America.
تنگی هرمز با محوریت نیروی دریایی سپاه و تحت اشراف، کنترل و پایش میدانی فرماندهی کل سپاه پاسداران سرلشکر پاکپور در منطقه راهبردی تنگی هرمز در حال برگزاری است. بررسی آمادگی یگانهای عملیاتی نیروی دریایی سپاه، مرور برنامه‌های تامینی و سناریوهای اقدام نظامی متقابل در مواجهه با تهدیدات امنیتی و نظامی احتمالی در منطقه تنگی هرمز و بهره‌گیری هوشمند از مزایای ژئوپلیتیک ایران در خلیج فارس و دریای عمان از مهمترین اهداف این رزمایش است. واکنش سریع، قاطع و فراگیر نیروهای عملیاتی سپاه در قبال توطئه‌های ضد امنیتی در عرصه دریایی در کانون تمرین‌های اطلاعاتی و عملیاتی یگانهای مستقر در این رزمایش هوشمند تنگی هرمز با محوریت نیروی دریایی سپاه و تحت اشراف، کنترل و پایش میدانی فرماندهی کل سپاه پاسداران سرلشکر پاکپور در منطقه راهبردی تنگی هرمز در حال برگزاری است. بررسی آمادگی یگانهای عملیاتی نیروی دریایی سپاه، مرور برنامه‌های تأمینی و سناریوهای اقدام نظامی متقابل در مواجهه با تهدیدات امنیتی و نظامی احتمالی در منطقه تنگی هرمز و بهره‌گیری هوشمند از مزایای ژئوپلیتیک ایران در خلیج فارس و دریای عمان از مهمترین اهداف این رزمایش است. واکنش سریع، قاطع و فراگیر نیروهای عملیاتی سپاه در قبال توطئه‌های ضد امنیتی در عرصه دریایی در کانون تمرین‌های اطلاعاتی و عملیاتی یگانهای مستقر در این
Tension across the Middle East has risen again after reports suggested that discussions are taking place between Israeli and American officials about possible future action against Iran if diplomacy over Tehran's nuclear program fails. The developments have sparked intense international attention as regional leaders weigh the balance between diplomacy and military deterrence. At the centre of the discussion is the long-running disagreement over Iran's nuclear activities. Israeli leadership has repeatedly argued that any agreement must permanently remove Iran's ability to enrich uranium at high levels, while Iranian officials insist their program is peaceful and focused on civilian energy needs. Recent diplomatic talks between Washington and Tehran have added urgency to the debate as both sides attempt to avoid another cycle of escalation. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has publicly stated that any agreement involving Iran must go beyond temporary limitations. In a recent speech, he emphasised that dismantling infrastructure is essential for long-term stability, saying that a deal should ensure Iran no longer has the capacity to rapidly restart sensitive nuclear activity.
A new warning from an unexpected corner, ladies and gentlemen, not from Tehran, not from Washington, but this time it's from Kabul. And this time the message is shaking the regional security calculation. The Taliban has stepped into the US-Iran standoff with words that sounds less like diplomacy here and more like a battlefield signal. A spokesman from Taliban, Zabihullah Mujahid, has issued a dramatic statement here. In fact, he says that if the United States launches military actions against Iran, Afghanistan could step forward to support Tehran. And the language was striking also. He said Afghanistan would unleash all capabilities, a phrase that instantly caught global attention because it hints at military involvement, strategic backing, and a potential expansion of regional conflict lines. But this particular statement carried a second message too, by the way. Even while issuing the warning, Taliban's leadership said that they still prefer peace. Yes, Taliban wants peace. A contradictory signal that shows how complicated modern geopolitics really has become. Well, this particular warning arrives at a tense moment too. Negotiations between Washington and Tehran over nuclear issues remain fragile. Military deployments across the Middle East are increasing. Diplomatic trust remains dangerously low, and now Afghanistan is speaking up. This matters because alliances in the region are shifting. For years, global attention focused on the US presence in Afghanistan, right? But now, Afghanistan is positioning itself as a regional player, making statements about conflicts far beyond its border. Well, Taliban's warning even referenced American naval power, specifically mentioning the potential of targeting massive US warships like USS Abraham Lincoln and USS Gerald R. Ford. Well, these carriers, they are not ordinary ships. They are floating military cities. They carry advanced fighter jets. They project American power across the ocean. Now, mentioning them directly raises the seriousness of this warning, right? And this comes while the US President, Mr. Donald Trump, continues increasing pressure on Iran. Sanctions remain strong, military deployments remain active, and diplomatic negotiations remain uncertain. Well, for Iran, statements like these, it signals growing regional sympathy. For the US, it raises new security calculation. For the Middle East and South Asia, it adds another unpredictable layer to an already volatile environment. Because modern conflicts rarely stay limited to two countries, right? They pull in allies. They activate regional loyalties. They create unexpected partnership, and sometimes they turn local tensions into global crises. Security experts are now asking one serious question. Is this just political messaging or signal of future military coordination? Can Afghanistan really project military support beyond its border? Or is this symbolic support meant to strengthen diplomatic positioning? Well, for now, no military movement has followed the statement, but in geopolitics, words themselves can be powerful weapons, right? They influence the strategy, they shape the alliances, they test the global reaction. So, the bigger picture is clearer. The US-Iran rivalry is no longer just bilateral here, it is slowly pulling the regional players into its orbit.